Hey everybody, this is Filter Starcraft, back for episode number 13 of my Bronze to Master series. This particular episode is going to deal with the Terran versus Terran matchup, which is really challenging. There's so much stuff that can happen, so you want to try to dictate the game. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea of how to play out the builds we're going to take a look at. Playing the straight up bio style that I've been showing you is really tough, so let's take a look at what we can do with some tank play and mixing in a few more units and fast upgrades, that kind of stuff. Now if you do want a more traditional, really strong marine tank composition, check out the first video I did where it's Terran versus Protoss. The first build there is traditional marine tank. The only exception to that is you want to get combat shield rather than skipping it completely. Tends to help out a whole lot, and instead of getting Banshees, just get medevacs. That'll kind of even out your costs. Now I'm sure by now some of you guys have noticed the screenshot in the background. I think the screenshot's pretty funny, but it also illustrates a couple of key points about what I talked about early on, where you should GG and, congratulate your opponent when he beats you. Sometimes when I lose and the guy does something really stupid and cheesy, like a one-base Baneling bust, it takes all my strength to GG him and leave the game, but I feel a lot better after I do that. When you do something like this, you're just going to feel crappy, and more importantly, you're not even going to analyze your own play and figure out why you lost. In this particular game, I don't think I'm cheesy. I spend my money better than him. I mine more than him. Wasn't really a cheesy play. He just happened to run all his Banelings into my Marauders, and my Hellions mopped up his Zerglings. Not a whole lot else to it, really. So it's pretty funny that he gets that upset and that mad about it, and calls me a cheeser even though I was on 3 base working on taking a 4th. So I'm not totally sure how that's cheesing. I had a really good army composition, but that's part of the game, so I just thought I'd share that with you because I thought it was pretty funny, and you know what, you never want to do that. I mean, there's no way this guy, he put me on ignore, he swore at me a whole bunch, swore at me in-game, then he logs off. There's no way he feels good about himself, and, how he's playing Starcraft when he has to look at this particular screenshot, so whatever. You move on, you queue for another match. Now, as funny as that screenshot is, I have to show some gameplay footage so you can kind of get a feel for it. The game in the background is a Terran versus Terran that I had to basically spend all day trying to catch because apparently nobody plays Terran anymore except for me. But I managed to get a game, and I was playing on Ohana, and if anybody's played Ohana, Reaper builds are really bad on that particular map because there's only one place to get into the base, and that's really natural. There's no place to get into the main or anything like that, so there's absolutely no point in going for Reapers. So when I scouted the guy, I was like, okay, he's going for Reaper expand, no big deal. And I actually moved my Marines up to the front to pressure him a little bit. Well, he went Mass Reaper, and I lost a whole bunch of SCVs. By the end of the game, I had lost something like 97 SCVs. He obviously transitioned out of Mass Reaper. The game went like 20 minutes, 22 minutes or something. It was 97 SCVs lost for me compared to like 12 for him, so I took a ton of economic damage. I kept rebuilding my SCVs, and eventually I just didn't have the tank count. Now that was my fault. I didn't keep remaking my tanks, despite the situations I was in. If I had have done that, I'm still pretty confident I could have won the game, despite losing all the SCVs. So that's what you're going to see in the background. Just a mental mistake on my part, not getting enough tanks. Really simple and straightforward. I can live with that. Time to move on and play another game. Now, as always, I want to emphasize a couple points. This is aimed at people that can execute the plays that I've shown before in the Platinum Series and down, where it's a very straightforward, linear build that you're doing every single game. If you can execute that, and you have a good feel for how gas times out your build, then you're going to be in really good shape. If you're still not certain and you're not totally ready for it, then feel free to take your time getting into these builds. You can do them if you want, but make sure you have a good base and a foundation, because they're pretty thin. What I mean by thin is if you're off by a little bit on some of your timings, or significantly, you're going to lose games with them and it's going to feel really bad. So just really important that you do have a good strong fundamental base if you want to play the two styles that I'm going to try to teach, because both of them are greedy in one way or the other. I'm going to stress something that a lot of people I think might be missing a little bit, and this is the fact that some players are just bad and their builds work. So a really good example of that is the background game that I've got going here, where the guy goes Mass Reaper early on and it causes me a lot of damage. There's absolutely no reason to go Reaper on that map. It's a horrible idea and it's a horrible build. Now, I'm playing off the assumption that he knows that it's a terrible idea, but that's probably just his TvT build that he does every time. So he runs his Reapers in and does a lot of damage. He plays fairly well after that though, so I don't want to take anything away from him. But do keep in mind, some players are just bad, some of their builds are are just really bad, and you're not gonna notice them. Good examples are somebody goes for Dark Templar, and it's not a rush, but it comes at like 9 minutes, and they don't expand and stuff like that. You're kind of like, you're not gonna be ready for that, because you're like, well, you know, if he's going DTs, they would have already been at my base by now. So if you're losing to silly cheese that's just bad, whatever, forget about it. There's no real way to be safe to bad cheese other than getting better and ranking yourself up in the ladder. Now, one thing I want to mention here is you want to have a plan before the start of every game. Don't just go into something blind and plan to react to that. If you play really strong and you play really solid, you can react to some guy going Mass Cloak Banshee with a couple turrets here and there, but you're not making a million Vikings to deal with it. You don't think in the sense of, I have to go down this path because he did this. You want your regular play to be solid enough that it doesn't really matter what he does. You're going to be just fine with some really small adjustments. So the first build we're going to be taking a look at is a build that focuses on getting really fast +1/+1 and a fast combat shield, but stims a little bit out there. So the cool thing about this particular build is your bio is usually always going to be ahead of him in upgrades, and once you get stim, that means you can be really active on the map. It excels on certain maps like Daybreak, where there's a second attack path to the third, and you can kind of swing around, and if you catch him out of position, you can take everything down. Now, the thing about having better Marines than the other guy does is as long as you don't attack where his siege tanks are, or you don't engage where his siege tanks are, you're going to win every single engagement. So what I mean by that is, if he sieges up his tanks or there's siege up on his ramp, don't attack there. If he comes out to try to meet you at watchtowers or something with just his Marines, take the fight, but if tanks are rolling in to back it up, then don't bother with the fight. If you have better upgrades than him, you're going to win Marine Wars in a huge landslide, and then you can just go kill him. It's actually pretty hilarious to watch. Now, you're still going to use some tanks to hold a really strong defensive position that he can't just run into, but you're going to rely on a mobile battle army, and you're going to rely on drops to do your damage to him. Alright, so we're going to jump into our practice game here. Daybreak I find a really good map for this particular style, so I'm going to play it out on Daybreak. Now the one big thing about this is map control is really important, because you're going to be quite late on tanks. The flip side of that too though is a lot of people have a big misconception that at 10 minutes their opponent's going to have like 8 tanks, and that's just not the case. Most players are going to have a little bit less than that. Well, quite a bit less. They're going to have like 2, maybe 3 at 10 minutes. Rare that they have much more than that. There's exceptions to that rule, like the major 1-1-1 play is one of them, but we do things a little bit differently here. Now, the big thing about this is you don't get tanks unless your opponent has tanks. If he has tanks, then you get tanks. Otherwise, there's no point. You stay a Marine. Don't make Marauders. Marauders are not very good unless he's getting tanks, and even then, we're going to make our own tanks to deal with that. We're going to bank on fast upgrades being the difference here. So, played everything pretty much as normal as we can. There's that guy. That Marine's going to die, so send him off to the computer space to scout and die. Alright. Nice and easy. I'm going to put down my next depot. If an SCV gets here already, like, he's just paranoid. Scouting Terran is just kind of walk up the ramp and just walk up, see what happens, go back. You usually get your SCV out if you play your cards right. You get a good idea on what he's doing. You really want to check to see if there's an add-on on the barracks. It's kind of the big thing. See the tech lab, you know he's going Reaper. That means your Marines have to stay in the space. If you don't see a tech lab, it's most likely not going Reaper, and your Marines can kind of hold watchtowers for you. Some maps, like Daybreak and Cloud Kingdom, are a really good example of that. You can only really hold your close watchtower. If you try to hold anything else, you're in a lot of trouble. So, it'd be unreasonable to expect to hold that watchtower unless he's really bad, but it's not worth trying to throw a Marine at it. The other thing is, because I have one Marine out here, if he does go Banshee, it's kind of bad, but it's not a huge deal.
Upgrade complete.
Alright, so let's get expansion down. There goes my scouting SCB. There we go. Oops, that's a really bad rally point. Let's fix that. There we go. Scouting SCBs down. Now I'm gonna go for my double gas really quick here instead of my usual supply depot. So let's grab that though. I need to grab my supply depot now, and it's still gonna get a bunker, but it doesn't need to come as early against Terran. It's still nice to have though. So let's start an SCV. Let's throw the bunker up. Throw those two guys in. Throw these two guys in. Now, one major difference is we're only going to work off 2 barracks. That's all we can afford, because we're getting this stupid early gas. So let's throw that up. There we go. And just kind of waiting. We're going to want an earlier engineering base, so let's get our transfer going. Drop those guys down there. You don't have any big queues. There we go. Nice timing. Can start another SCV just about in time. Come on. Come on. There we go. Took a little while, but that's okay. See the gas build up starting to get high, but that's going to drop really fast here. Still just making Marines. When this finishes, I'm going to be looking to do my usual scan. So let's pretend like we didn't scout them, drop our scan. Now, throw that up, that up. We're going to try to get our double engineering base down here. There we go, that's one. Yeah, second one down. So now I got 2 engineering base. Just going to research almost immediately. We're going to throw 2 tech labs up really quick here. So 1 tech lab, 2 tech labs. Next thing I'm going to be looking for is a barracks, and then I'm going to be looking for a factory. So let's get our barracks up. I'm going to be kind of careful at this point because I'm going to need a depot. And I'm going to start +1/+1. So should actually probably wait to build that barracks, but that's okay. Come on. Miss my SBs. There we go. And as soon as we get our opportunity here, we're going to jump into combat shield and stim packs. So we'll start stim. We're going to start up combat shield. There we go. And we're going to be looking for a factory. So, oh, factory's up. So a little bit bumpy, but things smoothed out. We're going to need a depot, so let's get that going. And get a reactor up there. So again, I have map control, I know what's coming. When I scan him, I'm going to know if he's going for fast tanks, fast Banshee, if he's going bio. If he's going bio, I'm laughing. Yep. And we're going to be looking for an armory basically when our factory finishes. So we need another depot. And we're going to need to grab that gas now. It's going into the next part of the upgrade. It's going to be really gas expensive here. So, alright. Start Starport, grab a reactor. And I made 2 starports, that's not good. Make that an armory, and make that a reactor. So, it's wasted a bunch of gas I don't necessarily want to be wasting at this point, but nothing I can really do about it. And we're going to take our 4th gas and start our command center. Which again, really early, but that's okay. Need another depot. Kind of here, our combat shield's done now. We're ready to get our extra barracks up. And just wait for it. Come on. There we go. Lift up our factory. Drop down our starport. And start +2 attack, and I'm going to start +2 armor right away too. So it's at 10 minutes, I'm already moving into 2-2. As soon as I get my 2 medevacs up, once these depots finish, I'm going to be laughing. So again, food's a little bit lighter, tech's a lot better. Yep. Up to 4 barracks now. As soon as I get those medevacs, I'm going to focus on being really mobile. I'm trying to really hit them. So, get another reactor. Come on. There we go. Get some more guys in the gas there. There we go. Now, it's not a huge ball of Marines, but it's still really, really solid group. Now I can kind of start adding my barracks as I go to take my third. Again, I haven't bothered to make any tanks yet. The reason for that is my opponent, the computer in this case, is not going for tanks. And I need one more racks. So, puts me up to my 9 barracks. Again, really fast. This is kind of an explosion style build. You want to be a little bit careful with your army. But you can be fairly mobile with it. And you can start dropping them. You can drop a little bit earlier, but there we go. Start our SCP transfers. With a couple depots getting built along the way. More of that. Get it on a hotkey. And there goes our drop. You want to keep a close eye on your opponent's upgrades here. And again, this is basically what an explosion build looks like. So, it's a lot of powering early, with the idea that late, we're going to blow up. So, put all that stuff down. Put all our reactors up. And another depot. Upgrade's finished, or are going to finish in 1 second. Trying not to kill the Terran player there. There we go. Starting +3/+3 at 13 minutes. Again, +2/+2 Marines with combat shield. Awesome. You can break tanks with these. If I were to run into, with my whole army, you can kind of see now how it's going to look, because I can just spam out a whole bunch of Marines. Right, if I were to engage another army of a bunch of Marines, I'd be able to do really well. You can just kind of tack on medevacs and other units as you need them. Get my factory prepared for tanks if I need them. And you only really need 3 bases, but as you start to get up there in food, you can go ahead and just throw your 4th down. Yeah, the depots are not going to keep up here, so drop that one, and 200, 200, perfect. You can kind of see how quick this maxes. And it's a snowball build. I can do a lot of damage with this. He's always got to be scared of drops because my Marines are more powerful than his. And it's going to stay that way. If I want to use tanks, like 2, 3 tanks here, or 1, 2 tanks here, 1, 2 tanks here, I kind of defend against most things. But you're definitely trying to be mobile with this force. Scan up, oh, he's got a bunch of tanks there, okay, no problem. Just go around this side. Move your army up and around. And you can see what the reinforcement potential looks like. Scan over here. Okay, he's got nothing here. Stim in, melt the command center. And pull back. Right, so these are destructible debris. I'm going to show you how fast these melts. Again, these Marines only 2/2, but I've got a lot of them. This is a really fun style to play, but you have to be active. So stim that up. Boom. Easy. And if your opponent's out of position at all, like even if his tanks are up here or something, and he has this expansion here, you can just rush in. I know we're stimming. Boom, command center's gone, pull back. Take out the depots on the way. Throw a little supply block on him, and get out of there. There's not a whole lot you can do about it, especially if you have tanks positioned behind it. Now, a couple of things I want to mention before I jump into kind of the benchmarks and the ordering of where we're getting our upgrades is the first one, you have to be really, really active if you want to play like that. The only thing that can really kill you is sieged up tanks in a position that you can't break that hurts your economy. If your economy starts getting messed up in that particular playstyle, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So you have to be constantly moving around the map. The other thing to keep in mind with that is if you do fall behind upgrades, you can't be aggressive. That's when you need to start building your tank count up a little bit. But if you are ahead in upgrades, that's where you're extremely mobile, you're moving all over. You don't want to engage where there's tanks, you want to engage everywhere else. You don't want to use your own tanks to attack unless it's absolutely necessary, like taking out a planetary fortress. There's no point in suiciding your Marines in there, unless you have a huge clump and you think you can get in and get out really quick before he has a chance to repair it. If he does repair it and you lose a bunch of Marines, you can lose the game from there. So I like to use tanks to try to break planetaries where I need it. You only really need 4, 5, 6 tanks if he is going tanks. You can then use those in defensive positions to really stop him from being aggressive with his tanks. The other thing is, if you're mobile on the map and you know where he is, and you land a good scan and your army's in position to maybe get a flank, you can run in and take out a bunch of tanks, no problem. It's actually a really fun playstyle. You have to have half decent micro. My micro is not very good, but it's more about decision making of when you're going to attack, where you're going to attack, and being active than it is about being able to split Marines into 18 different piles and play beautifully from there. Now, I don't often mention micro in any of the videos so far. I will be in the future, but I feel it's really important for this particular playstyle to mention this. Marines have the highest DPS in the game by far for the amount of space they take up. It's not even close. So what that means is, if his army is of similar size to you, or maybe even a little bit smaller, and there's a lot of Marines there, and he's starting to siege up his tanks, and his tanks aren't sieged up, don't rush your Marines in and try to focus fire the tanks. What will happen is you'll kill like 3, 4 of his tanks, but all your Marines are going to die to his Marines, because Marines are that strong. They're more powerful than the tanks. That means you can't engage with the tanks, because tanks are still really, really strong, but you can't just rush in and expect to kill the tanks and then mop up his Marines after. If he has a very small amount of Marines and you can overpower him, what you want to do is kind of split off small groups of your Marines to pick off his tanks while they're sieging up. You don't want to take your whole ball and focus fire, because you'll lose a lot of Marines that are just walking and doing absolutely no damage. It's really, really important that you don't suicide in trying to kill tanks. Ideally, what you want to do is if he is sieging up his tanks, try to pick a few Marines off and then back off out of tank range. And then when he unsieges, you can kind of go back in and pick him off slowly. If you can land a drop or something like that while he's trying to concentrate on that, chances are you might be able to catch him off guard too. But it's really important not to just rush in and try to kill tanks. You'll get all your Marines killed, because even if his Marines are down 1-1 on upgrades to you, if you just rush into a big pile of them, you're going to get destroyed. So whatever you do, don't try to pick off tanks when he has a whole bunch of Marines next to them. It won't work. So you're going to make a few adjustments to your style of play that you've been practicing. The main ones are as follows. You want to get your double gas after you get your first barracks. You want to get your double engineering bay after you get your second barracks. Now, you may have to cut a few Marines to do this, which means you're not going to be all that safe at the front. So you have to have map control to see anything crazy coming, where you can then kind of stop making the engineering bay and get Marines or whatever you need to do to kind of hold the push. Now, from there, what you have to do is you have to start stim pack, combat shields, and +1/+1 while you're taking your third barracks. Then after you start those 4 upgrades, that's when you take your factory, that's when you take your third gas. After your factory is finished, you're going to want to take your 4th gas, build an armory, and build a starport. You're going to find your gas piles up a little bit and then sinks really, really quickly. If you get your armory up at the right time though, you're going to be able to transition straight into +2/+2, so make sure you save the money for that. You should still be able to expand at a really normal time and get your barracks up. It's a really difficult play style to get right, because you can die to a few things if you're not careful, but at the same time it's extremely powerful. Once you get your +1/+1 combat shield and stim and a couple medevacs, you can start moving around on the map. Once you get +2/+2, if his bio is not +1/+1, you become extremely strong and you can just hammer him with drops. He won't be able to clean up your drops with just his Marines alone usually. So it's a really, really strong play. I really like it. Again, there's a few adjustments, but you should be able to pick it up in 2 or 3 practice attempts, and then as you keep going, you're going to get stronger and stronger at this particular style of play. I really like it. I use it a lot myself. Okay, we're going to jump into the game on the second build we've kind of mentioned a little bit before. This particular, it's a build order early on, but it leads straight into the style of play we've been working with before. So it leads into the traditional 3 barracks, up to 5, up to a third base and all that stuff really, really well, but it's a completely different way of doing it, and it looks very odd. So, really cool play. I really like it. It's one of the more fun styles to play. It actually holds the 1-1-1 really easy. In recent clan war I was helping my friend out with, I drew a Grandmaster Terran player as my opponent, which was like, this is awesome. And what ended up happening is he did a 1-1-1 push on me. He pretended like he did an expansion, but I was able to scout that. And it was a straight up 1-1-1 push. Held the push no problem, and I threw away the game a little bit later on through bad micro, but the actual first push was held no problem. So if any of you Terran guys are struggling with that, this is a really safe build to that. against that particular type of play. So we're going to throw that guy back, start on our gas right away here. Now the cool thing about this is you get your barracks a little bit later, you get your gas on 12, and if the other guy comes to your base and scouts this, first thing he's going to think is, oh, this guy's going 1-1-1, or he's going cloak Banshee. He's not going to think you're doing what you're trying to do, which is expand. And it's a really cool way of doing that. It lets you expand and set up a really nice attack, because it gives you map control. So I'm going to show you that. It is a little bit weak to like a mass Reaper play, but that's not very common. If he makes one Reaper, you can hold that no problem. You can hold pretty much anything, no problem. Especially early game of this, even though it looks like it's really flimsy. I've had people 6-racks me and stuff like that with it, and it's held no problem. So now, as soon as this barracks is done, we're going to want to throw down a factory. Now, if you notice, what I'm not doing is I'm not making that supply depot, because I don't need it yet, and it'll actually throw everything out of whack. So, as soon as this is done, throw down a factory over there, swing that back there. We're going to start our marine, and then we're going to start our orbital command right away. It should be nice and clean. There we go. Now I'm going to need to get that supply depot up, so you go ahead and work with that. Most times, a Terran player will have scouted you by now, but if he does, it's not a big deal. Go down Tech Lab here. You gotta get that Tech Lab down right away, so you can go straight into making your Starport there. And there we go. So despite getting the one really early gas, I'm not getting another one, which is kind of the key here. So we'll lift that off, drop that down there. As soon as that guy finishes, he's gonna throw up a Starport. And there goes Starport. I'm going to make a Hellion as soon as I have the money. There we go. The Hellions are going to be for map control. And get another supply depot up. Again, not making Marines, it looks flimsy, but I need the one Marine, that's it. That's my defense right now. But I'm going to get the Hellion out, and then another Hellion, so you get two. Just rally them together. And I'm going to use that Hellion to take that watchtower there so I can spot any craziness coming towards me. Steve's going to finish up nicely. And as soon as Starport finishes, I'll start a Banshee up. I'm going to send this guy off to make our expansion. So we'll probably get in some mining first. There we go. Got our second Hellion out. And there goes our natural. So expansion's later than it has been, but ends up not being too big of a deal. Now I need to go ahead and grab myself another supply depot. Again, I've only got the two Hellions. I'm going to use those for map control. You can actually poke right up to his base and kind of see what he has with them, depending on how good your micro is. I'm trying to talk in place, so that's probably not going to happen, but ends up not being a big deal. Now we're going to add 2 more barracks on really quick here. And we're going to flip the Starport right away for this barracks and start grabbing our stim. Again, really technical build, hard to pull off. I struggle with it more often than not. We're going to grab ourselves a Viking and stim. There we go. Now we want to grab our second gas here. And got to grab a depot. So let's go ahead and grab that. You see our Banshee's here, so we want to micro that out. You see how early that gets to his base? It's not going to have much to defend that. And we're just going to kill some of the SCVs here. Again, constant marine production is really important. We don't want to focus too much on this Banshee. It actually doesn't need to do much damage at all. Ends up not being a big deal at all. We're going to slap down an edge bay and then slide over. Get 2 more Marines on the way. Another Marine, and we're going to need another Viking here. So let's get that guy started up and get our guys in gas. Come on, Viking. Here, Viking. Here, Viking. There we go. Second Viking on the way. Again, this Banshee's not really for much. What I like to do with it is pull his stuff around the back and just kind of show the Banshee over on the back side too. Now we're going to use this factory to go ahead and throw down a tech lab. Or sorry, a reactor. We're going to need to grab our third gas. Trying to stay consistent with the Marines. We get stim pack in a second here. It's going to be awesome. And normally you'd have an expansion here and we'd harass that. Grab ourselves another depot. And got our 2 Vikings now. You can use those for whatever. Great for defense and holding air control so that he can't punish you for something. Get another depot. Just keep making our Marines. Snag myself a +1. And as soon as that's finished, should be in great shape. And I want to start combat shield. Lift that. Flip those 2 over. And grab 2 more depots. The other 2 should finish up here. Grab myself 2 medevacs. More Marines. Ideally, you want to be landing in this base at about 10 minutes if you can. Takes some refining to really get it right, though. Now, there's a couple ways I can play it out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab 2 more barracks. And another engineering bay. Keep making my Marines. So, I have a nice amount now. Not making tanks again unless I see them from my opponent. You can see 10 minutes, 87 food, despite the really funky opening. And we're going to send these medevacs over here and just drop them. That's your idea. You want to have fast combat shield. You're going to have fast +1. Doesn't all need to time out perfectly, but we're going to have a really solid build. Now, we can take our expansion. Similar time than we normally do. Start our +1 defense. And we can grab an armory. If we need to get tanks, we need to take this 4th gas. If we don't need tanks, then there's no point. Just a quick FYI. And got my drop in the back now. That's going to be hard for him to deal with. So, stim in, kill a bunch of stuff. Even if all these guys dry, it's not the end, not that big of a deal, but ideally you want to try to save them. So, I'm going to pick up there. And grab that. Grab that. You can see money starting to pile up. Let's grab some depots, because apparently I forgot to make them. And I'm going to go up to my 9 barracks. So, arriving at basically the same spot. A little bit slower, a little bit different way of doing it. Still works out really, really well. You can hold pretty much anything. Again, you get tanks if your opponent gets tanks. That's it. So, we're going to grab our 4th gas here, because I need to. Cancel medevac to get +2 weapons on the way. But definitely need the extra gas for the upgrades now. See, the upgrades are still fairly quick. Okay, we move out and take a base. There we go. Really cool way to play the game out compared to last time. Now, earlier I mentioned using tanks to kind of position an attack. If you do grab that 4th gas a little bit earlier and go into tanks, what you can do is kind of position yourself, depending on the map, outside his front with a couple of tanks and really take him from there. You can punish a lot of players that way. Now, I still really prefer heavy marine style. I find it way more fun, so that's what I'm doing here. But again, got all those extra barracks. Let's throw some reactors on those guys. Here's our +1 weapons, so we can start +2. And start grabbing more medevacs. And I'm going to need more depots again, because apparently I can't make depots in time. So, let's grab some more depots. But you can kind of see how this plays out. It's really strong, really potent force. I can stop SCBs now. If you do have tanks to use for staging an attack, works really well. And this drop is not designed to kill the opponent, but there we go. Now I'm up to all my barracks. I'm going to need mass depots. And taking another base is going to be really easy, so just walk up and take it. This build will give you excellent map control and it will hold pretty much any kind of 1-1-1 that comes at you. Again, I personally prefer to get tanks if my opponent gets them, otherwise I don't bother. There's also a little bit of refining I need to do here. I'm not playing perfect, but that's what it is. Sometimes it's tough to talk on a microphone and play. There we go. Break that up. And we're going to push up the front. Oh, he's got a Ghost Academy now. I don't know what that's for, but hey. I'm just going to stim everything stupidly up. You can see. Ton of barracks. I'm maxed out. I can replenish my army really, really fast. I'm taking another base.
Mineral.
There's not much you can do to me. Yeah, and again, just jump into +3 attack.
Additional supply depots required.
Makes your opponent's life really tough. Really strong again. If you do need to position and use your tanks, just grab them. With this particular play, it's very technical and you have to do it very precise. If you try to rearrange things and move things around, it's not going to work very well. What I mean by that is if your factory is late, or you try to get extra marines out to feel safe, or you try to get a bunker up to feel safe, you're just not going to have that ability. As soon as you start making those adjustments, the rest of the build kind of falls apart, and you'll find your timings are much too late to really be effective, and you can die to a lot more stuff. So it's really important that you follow it very exact in the beginning until you get to the point where you can just kind of play it out naturally. Now, what you want to do with this particular play is grab your gas on 12, grab your barracks on 13, make one marine out of your barracks, and get your factory as soon as your barracks is finished. You do not have to hide it if there's a scouting SCV. It's almost beneficial if he does see it, because then he's going to suspect a cloak Banshee or a Banshee rush or something crazy like that and overreact to it, which is fine. Your Banshee is really only there to do a little bit of damage, get some scouting information, do whatever it possibly can, but it's not a huge reliant that it has to kill like 10 SCVs to make you even. After that, what you're going to do is get your tech lab on your barracks, and then you're going to start your starport on the tech lab you got on your barracks. You have to start the tech lab almost as soon as the marine finishes, otherwise it's going to be too late. When your factory is done, you need to get 2 Hellions out of it. Don't make any more, don't make a 3rd Hellion, just make 2. Use the 2 Hellions to get map control. If there's a watchtower outside of his base, hey, awesome. On maps like Daybreak, on maps like Cloud Kingdom, maps like Core Hall Compound, this build is really effective. On maps without that watchtower, like Antigua Shipyard, it's not quite as strong. Keep that in mind. Now, after your starport's finished, you're going to grab a Banshee. Shortly after that, you're going to be able to get your expansion. Then you're going to, as soon as the Banshee's finished, you're going to get stim, you're going to get 2 extra barracks, and you're going to get 2 Vikings. So that means is you have to flip your starport and your barracks around so you can start stim right away, because Vikings don't require any add-ons, obviously. And then after that, and you've kind of got everything up and running the way you need it, you need to get a reactor on your factory, and then you need to get your 3rd gas. So hopefully it'll line up so your 2 Vikings finish, and then you can swap your starport and your factory, get your 2 dropships out immediately. You should be able to fill them with the marines that you need to go and drop his base. If you have excellent map control, you're going to know there's no attack coming, so you're going to be safe to do that, even if you have basically nothing at your front. Then from there, you can just play it out normally. You can grab your engineering bay, grab 2 engineering bays to get your upgrades rolling. You'll be in great shape. You can go into tank play, stage a really powerful tank attack from this, or you can just go into traditional bio ball if you want. It's entirely up to you. Now, you want to be really careful with your drop. Don't just drop and lose everything, but at the same time, if you can target down supply depots, reactors, maybe get a few SCVs if he's not paying attention, all that damage is good. Don't try to gun down a command center or barracks or anything like that, though you're just not going to be able to do it. Alright, that wraps up this particular episode of Bronze to Masters. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you've got some ideas for new ways you can integrate stuff into your play. That wraps up the 3-part series as well, on different kinds of build variations and different adjustments you can make depending on what your playstyle preference is, what you're struggling with, how you want to play the game out, and they're all relatively easy adjustments to make. You're already kind of doing everything you need to do. Now, the one thing I want to say here is if you're playing really good and you're playing really mechanically sound, you can go watch anything on YouTube in terms of build orders, pick it up immediately, and start executing it if your fundamentals are really strong through this point. So, again, don't feel like you have to do the certain plays I'm talking about, even if you like the videos I'm putting out. Feel free to jump around, figure out other stuff, because there's a lot of really good strategies out there, and if your mechanics are up to snuff, you're going to be able to take full advantage of all of them. So keep that in mind, don't limit yourself. Go find out new stuff, try it out. I do it all the time and I have a ton of fun doing it. So with that being said, follow me on Twitter. If you like my videos, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Everything like that's awesome. And this is Filter Starcraft. I'll see you guys next time.